All right, y'all, another new concept, and we're going to talk about domain and range, and we're going to talk about this two different ways. So what I want you to think about is your domain is always going to be in respect to your x-axis, and your range is always going to be in respect to your y-axis. So think of the domain, if you look at this, think of this is my x-axis and this is my y-axis. Think of the domain as any of the numbers that are going to hit your x-axis, and your range are going to be your values that hit your y-axis. That'll help you when you look at this. So before we get complicated, let's look at this in just one dimension. If I have one dimension, I have only an x-axis right here. Okay, so we're going to do this in two different ways. We're going to talk about this as inequality form and interval form. And we're going to use inequality form later when we do piecewise functions, but for the most part, interval form is the one that you're going to report. So inequality tells us we want to know where it starts and where it ends. And when I have a closed-in circle, then that closed-in circle is going to be included. So closed-in circle, we're going to use brackets. Open circle, we're going to use parentheses. This means it's included, and this means it is not included. Okay? And so when I have this inequality, this is telling me I'm going to start at -3 and I'm going to end at 2. So in inequality notation, I'm going to start at -3. It's included, so I have it's going to be greater than or equal to x. So x is greater than or equal to -3. And this is closed, so it's going to be included to 2. So another way to think about this is all of the values between -3 and 2. That's why your variable's on the inside. So the interval notation says we're going to start at -3 and we're going to end at 2. So all of the values in between. And the difference between these is I'm going to use brackets now because it's included. It's an equal sign. So let's do a harder one. We have two things going on. We have this area right here that's between 2 points. So this is going to be included because it's closed. This is going to be open. So we are not going to include. And this is going to keep going. It's going all the way to infinity. It's just going to keep going and going and going. Okay? So for inequality notation, I have two things going on. I have -4. It's included. So it includes the equal sign, and it's going to go to 1. And the 1 is not included, so I don't have an equal sign on this. But then I also have everything from -2 on. So I'm going to say x is greater than or equal to 2. I think I said -2, but I meant +2. Anything greater than 2. So with our interval notation down here, we're going to have two different things. We had two parts to this, right? We said this part, which is the first, and then anything bigger than 2 is going to be the second. And that's what this is going to look like. It's going to say -4 to 1. Now -4 is got my closed-in circle, it's included, but 1 is open, so I use a parenthesis. Remember over here, if it's not included, we use a parenthesis. And then I'm going to start over again at 2. And this time I'm going to keep going all the way to infinity. It doesn't end. And infinity, right here, infinity or -infinity is always parentheses. We're not using a bracket. Okay, now let's try this. So domain are the x values. So this was just one dimension. Now we're dealing with two dimensions. We're going to have the x, but then we're also going to have the y. So remember, these are going to be my x values. These are going to be my y values. So if I look at my domain is going to be left to right. So I'm starting here at -4, and I'm going to keep going and going and going and going and going and going. So it's going to start at the left, and it's going to go all the way to infinity. I have an arrow on the end. So this is going to be x is greater than or equal to -5. So x is just going to keep getting bigger. I'm using a greater than or equal because this is closed. My interval notation tells me that I start at -5 and I'm going to keep going all the way to infinity. Remember, infinity is always a parenthesis. All right, so now let's talk about our range values. So our range values are values that are going to go from down to up, right? So I start with the negative values, which are down here, and I'm going to go up. So if I look at the lowest point on my graph, this is the lowest point on my graph, and that happens right here at -1. That's the lowest point on my graph. My highest point on my graph happens here at 5. Doesn't matter that there's an arrow, it's going to keep going here. It's never going to get above 5. So I start at -1. It's included, so I'm going to use an equal sign. This time I'm not dealing with x, I'm dealing with my y values. And the highest that I go, remember down to up, the highest I'm going to go is going to be including 5. All right, so what this says is start at -1 and go to 5. And it's included with both of those. All right, let's do the next one. It's a little bit harder. So I'm going to start with the domain. Remember, domain is going to be left to right. So if I look at this, there's an arrow, and while the arrow is going up, it's also continuing in the negative infinity direction, right? And so because of that, it's going to go up and up and up and up and up and forever, which means it's going to keep going in the x direction. Maybe not very quickly, but it's going to keep going in the x direction. So with this one, we're going to say x is everything less than -2 because it's going to keep going. So we're going to say x is less than or equal to -2. And with this one, even though my arrow is going down, it's going to continue to go in the x direction. So it's going to continue to go to infinity. So with this one, it's going to keep going in the x direction. So here we're going to say x is greater than 2. And it's only greater, not greater than or equal to, because of this open circle. So I have 2 parts, which means for my interval notation, I'm going to have 2 parts. I'm going to go from -infinity to -2. And then I'm going to start up again at 2, which is a parenthesis, and I'm going to keep going to infinity. All right, if we look at the range, so this is down to up. So the lowest that my graph goes, if I look at this, this is going to keep going and keep going and keep going in the negative direction. So this is going to be my lowest position. And then I'm going to keep going up, up, up. This comes over here and it goes up, up, up. And so it's going to be all real numbers. And it's all real numbers because there's always going to be, this is going to keep going negative, this is going to keep going positive. There'll always be a y value. So we would write this as this kind of fancy R for all real numbers. The way we do all real numbers in interval notation is -infinity to infinity. All right. One more here. So we have an open circle. Because we have an open circle, we're going left to right. So we're going to start here at -4, and we're going to go to 0, and then we're going to keep going and keep going and keep going. So even though there's 2 parts to the graph, all of this is going to just keep going in the x direction. So we're going to say x is greater than -4. Only, excuse me, only greater, not greater than or equal, because this is open. So interval notation. Interval notation says we start down here at -4. It's not included. And I'm going to go all the way to infinity. All right, so my range, I want to find my lowest point. So this is my lowest point on my graph. And even though this is going, it's going up and up and up. So I don't have a top. So I don't have an end point here. So if my lowest point is 0, if my lowest point is this open circle, that happens at -8. So I'm going to have -8. And that is going to go all the way here to this point, which is y. Oh, sorry, that should be just less than or equal to -4. That's this part of my graph. I don't have y values in here. There's no y value, so it's going to pop up here. It's going to start again at 0, and this time it's going to be included, and it's going to go to infinity. So it's going to be y is greater than or equal to 0. Now you could write it this way or you can write it this way. You're saying the same thing, okay? So what does that look like in interval notation? It's going to be from negative 8 to negative 4. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to start again at 0 and I'm going to go to infinity. I went through this one pretty quick, so make sure you understand that. Maybe stop it and go back. Okay. Just to save on time today, we're not going to work on inequality. We're going to work on just interval notation. Okay? So I want you to pause the video and work on interval notation for number 6 and for number 7, and then I'll come back. Okay, so let's look at this first one. Left to right. So left to right, I have -5 to -1. This side's a bracket because it's closed. This side's a parenthesis. And then left to right, I go from 2 to 4, and they're both brackets because they're both closed circles. Now, be careful with the range. Even though this part is first, this part is lower. Remember, it's lower to higher. So we're going to start at, this is my lowest point right here. So I'm going to go from -8 to -4, and then I don't have anything here. All of this is one line. So if it's all one line, I'm going to write this as just 4. Now you can also write it like this with a brace, but either one of these is going to work. Okay? This one's a little tricky. This is going to keep going and keep going and keep going in both directions. So that means that my domain is going to be all real numbers. So this is the same as all real numbers. And my range is going to keep going negative and keep going positive. This is also all real numbers. So basically every thing in the domain and range is going to have a value. Okay. This one's tricky. Now, this one, what happens is I have a closed point right here, and I have an arrow that's right here. And so if we look at this, this is my top point. It's never going to get higher than this. But this is going to be my lowest. And this is my lowest because it's going to keep going in this y direction right here. So if I look at this, my graph is going to start at -1, and it's a closed circle. So it's going to start at -1. That's the leftmost point. And all of these have x values, and it's going to just keep going and keep going and keep going. So this goes to infinity. Now my range is this. And a lot of people want to say this is my lowest point and this is my highest point, but this is my lowest. So it's going to start at -infinity. It's going to start clear down here, and it's going to go all the way to 1. Okay, last one. All right, so remember, left to right. So this arrow is going this direction. So if it's going this direction, my leftmost point is going to be out here at -infinity. And I'm going to keep going on this graph, and I hit this. If I come down here, I still have x values. Those x values stop at 4, where I have an open circle, and then pick up again at 6, where I have an open circle. So if I'm going left to right, it's going to be -infinity. All of this, it doesn't matter that I jump down here because I still have x values, and it's going to go all the way to 4. And then it's going to pick up again at 6, and the arrow tells me that it's going to keep going. A little bit tricky. All right, let's talk about the range. So this is my lowest point of my whole graph. So it's going to start at -8. And I'm going to keep going up and up and up and up, and I hit the end of this graph, but I can come over here. I still have y values. These y values are going to just keep going, or I can come over here and I can see it better. This is still all included, and these y values are going to keep going. So this is going to keep going to infinity. Domain is historically pretty tricky, domain and range. So if you're struggling with this, come see me and I'll give you a bunch of practice problems.